Preparations are currently underway for the funeral of AmaXhosa King Mpendulo Zwelonke Sigcawu tomorrow. President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering the eulogy at the funeral at the King's residency in Nqadu Great Place in Willowvale, this in the Eastern Cape province. But our ENC political editor Vuyo Mfoko is there with the details. Vuyo, good to have you with us right here in the rundown. Let's just start with how preparations are going for tomorrow's funeral.
Well, to me, the past 5 hours have been particularly busy. You have the Air Force, the Army, as well as the Navy have been rehearsing to the T tomorrow's proceedings. But of course, at home at the Great Place, the King's Palace, preparations have been going on here as well. And that is where we are, in fact, right now. I spoke a little earlier on to an officer of the Defence Force who explained how the state is involved and what has been happening over the past week. Here's a bit of what she had to say when I asked her about the state's particular involvement.
The Commander-in-Chief has instructed the SANDF, which is South African National Defence Force, to take over and be involved in this funeral, as it is a Category 1 funeral. So today we are here to rehearse. This is our final rehearsals. We started with the rehearsals yesterday and the day before. We were busy with preparations. So what is going to happen now as a military, we are concentrating on the ceremonial part of the funeral. We are working hand in hand with the home, which is the royal family, to support and make sure that our king is buried with dignity. So basically what is taking place here behind me are all our chief mourners, and then they are all running now the phases of what is going to take place tomorrow. Fortunately now they are about to depart, but we started first at home, what is going to happen at a crawl and what is going to happen at a royal place. From the morning tomorrow around 5:30, we will be there draping and doing that, and then all the symbols will be involved. And we are also discussing how to integrate these symbols, which means the royal symbol versus the military symbols. So therefore we are in respect of the royal house. We follow behind the home. So everything that we do as a military is done in synchrony with the family.
Now, Vuyo, as of course we've heard that preparations are underway, you've clearly mentioned as well that the military is also preparing for the funeral tomorrow. We've also been seeing reports that the Abatembu King, Willowvale, has decided not to attend this. He says not to cause any unnecessary distractions. But then just take us through who is expected to attend tomorrow and how the program is looking like.
Well, several kingdoms opportunity to speak, pay tribute, and among them the kingdom of Lesotho, as well as the kingdom of Mandebele, among others. But there will also be elders speaking, and one particular elder expected to speak is the former President Thabo Mbeki. The eulogy, of course, which will be the highlight of that formal and state part of the program, will be delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa. But on either side of the program, in other words, from morning till around 7:30, there will be a ceremony that's going to take place here, right where we are at the Great Place here in Nqadu, and that is where the family and the church will have a ceremony lasting about 2 hours. And after the formal part of the program, which will be from 11 o'clock till just after 12, there again the family will take over, or will be in charge of the bulk of that program. But to tell us what will happen there in those two parts of the program, we have Prince Khanti from the AmaXhosa Royal House. Prince, good evening, good morning, good day. Thank you very much for your time. Now, tell us very briefly what will be happening in the morning as the family, joined by members of the Methodist and other churches, will be doing.
Afternoon to you and to the viewers. We will be in Butchwa at 4 a.m. in the morning, drive to the palace. We expect to be home at 5. Then the clergy will take over with their church rituals, including our rituals as the family. And by 6 o'clock, we expect to leave the palace for the church service.
And you will, of course, I've seen from the draft program, be part of the formal proceedings where President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver the eulogy. But from around 11 o'clock, the cortege will leave the big marquee where the funeral service will take place and come back to the palace, and that is where the body of King Mpendulo will be laid to rest. What's going to happen there in that hour that has been set aside for that part of the program?
Basically, we will leave the main marquee, as you have indicated, escorted and led by the army up until we get to the gravesite. Government will do what is necessary, the handing of the flag to the family. Thereafter, we will then have our lion skin wrap. We have to wrap the coffin with that lion skin, which we expect that it will be taken when the body is right down the ground on the grave.
And you have been very happy with the collaboration between yourselves as the kingdom and the state.
We are, because the wrapping of the coffin by our South African flag means a lot. You must also remember that we were the commanders of the Xhosa Armed Forces. It is only when we were defeated by the British that we could no longer lead. But it didn't mean that we lost who we are. The formation of the government was as a result of ours having been, destroyed by the foreigners, the British. Then thereafter, they formed their own government in '94, as you know, that we liberated ourselves, took over the army. It's an army now led by generals who are from our communities, black, most of them, which is what we enjoy because we are the majority of this country. And the respect that our government has given, to His Majesty the King really means that the wars that we fought before are really considered. We are the commanders of the Xhosa Armed Forces. We are the commanders of the Xhosa Chiefs. So we really, applaud the government with the gesture that they've given to the family. And it is the first of its kind in this country after 1994.
Prince Sigcawu, thank you very much for your time. Prince Sigcawu of the AmaXhosa Royal House. As you heard, very happy at how the government has handled things so far. And no doubt, President Cyril Ramaphosa in his eulogy tomorrow will perhaps give the single biggest word on how the government regards traditional leadership in this country. In other words, not only the AmaXhosa Kingdom, but send a very clear signal or message to other kingdoms across the country as to how the state sees them, and whether, in fact, indeed, this particular funeral will give an indication of how the government will treat other kingdoms when things like this happen again in future.
All right, thanks for that. That's ENC's Mvoko right there at the preparations of Chief Mpendulo, the AmaXhosa chief, whose funeral is tomorrow, being given an official funeral by government. Also expected to speak then the program tomorrow is President Cyril Ramaphosa, of course, taking the eulogy there. Former President Thabo Mbeki will also be in attendance amongst other dignitaries, but we do know that the Abathembu King Dalindyebo will not be attending this, he says, to not cause any unnecessary distractions. But also the Kingdom of Lesotho have pledged that they will commit to attend that funeral.